you're a success story, and maybe you want to share a little bit about your raw journey and how you got here, and maybe manage the expectations of others who are on the same or similar path, right? So that's what Journeys is about. It's about telling your story to inspire other people on a similar path. Maybe share with us a little bit of that.
So I think what was a theme in my career, constant theme in my career, has always been that there was this expectation. So following the sort of the chartered accountancy route and having a very defined career path, and sort of my only option, I thought, was to become a partner in a big four consulting firm. That was always sort of the route and the path. And then, for 16 years, I tried very hard to fit in and to be that sort of, person that, follow that route. But then, you it's not like you're banging your head against a brick wall, but you come up against so many different obstacles and challenges. And it's not like you're not actually listening to the clues and the feedback. You're just like hell bent because there's this societal expectation about the role. And if you're a career person, if you're a career woman, this is sort of, I was very much, this is my path. I wanted to reach the top, very ambitious. And even having my boys, having Heinrich and then 2 years later, Andreas, was very much for me like a tick in the box, moving back to work and sort of, back into career swing of things, and not necessarily
Like
allowing
following a
myself.
plan.
Yeah, not necessarily even allowing myself to be a mum properly, because there's this defined sort of route, and I
Mm.
think I was very lucky because very early on in my career, I mean, I say also you make your own luck, but very early on in my career, I navigated sort of out of accounting and auditing into people and change. So very, very early on, I knew that I wanted to be sort of the trainer in the front of the room, delivering like personal development courses, professional development courses. And I did become the sort of training manager for, at the time I was at PwC in the Western Cape. And then, of course, through a big company like that, you then get an experience to go overseas. So then I was in London for 2 years, which became 3 years, which became 4 years. Then life happens. So 18 years later. But essentially, what we have, what I've had was a really, really amazing platform. So the first 16 years of my career, an amazing platform, and in that time, I also was able to transition into cybersecurity. So after I had Andreas, the second time I went back to work, 2010, I just had a conversation with a colleague. So cybersecurity was then, becoming a thing. And he said to me, Marilise, it's ultimately a people problem we're trying to solve here. So we need someone kind of with your behavioral change, learning and development background, coaching skills background to come and help us. And that's sort of when my journey started back in 2010, kind of falling. I always say to people, I kind of accidentally fell into cybersecurity. And then, of course, some of you already know a little bit about my journey, but the more senior I became, the more I also then had to deal with toxic behavior in the workplace, and ultimately, I would say, met my menace at work, but a very, very toxic individual who ultimately, eventually made me leave my corporate career. It was about 5 years ago, to start my own thing. So that's how I accidentally became an entrepreneur, because I just could not navigate that environment anymore. I felt tired. I was on my knees. I was burnt out. My relationships with Heini and the boys was struggling. And yeah, I was just not a present mom, not a present friend, and just at absolute rock bottom.
I actually want to touch on two critical things that you've mentioned in sharing this story. So one, you said listening to the clues, and maybe it's that inner voice or things around us that we don't see, or we see it but we ignore it, right? And
Yes.
maybe just share what were some of those clues for you. That's the first part. And the second part, something that resonates with a lot of people I know and myself, and having a few chats around toxic behavior in the workplace, right?
Mm.
And what are also some of those signs, or what were some of those signs for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'll start with the first question
Mm,
around cues, because I think they're always there. And I think that's what I mean when I say there was this sort of set career path. There was societal expectations around, you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. So it was never, and I, I honestly, I've had an amazing corporate career. Like I've had amazing experiences, but it always felt a little bit like I had to try too hard. Like I was trying to be somebody that I'm not. I couldn't be myself authentically 100%. And I recognized that was down to me as well. But it was really that sort of trying to so hard to fit in, and everything felt like hard work. So it didn't necessarily flow. It didn't necessarily feel like, yes, you're passionate about something and you bring a contribution, but also often your ideas get sort of shut down, because this is the way we do things around here, so out of the box sort of ideas, which I often brought to the table, was sort of, it's too hard, it's always too, complicated. And there were all these little cues throughout the years, but it's not something that, as you say, that inner voice that we listen to, because
mm,
also I think you get so conditioned in a corporate environment that it's also about the survival of the fittest, in the sense of
absolutely. How you navigate those, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.